Brett McKay here, and welcome to another edition of the Art of Manliness podcast. So for the past 10 years or so, kettlebells have become a popular workout tool. If you don't know what a kettlebell is, it's basically a cannonball with a handle on it, and you swing it around, and it gives you both not only a strength workout, but a cardio workout. Well, the man who had a lot to do with the popularization of kettlebell training here in the United States, his name's Pavel Tsatsouline. And Pavel started a company not too long ago called StrongFirst, which is dedicated to helping people become strong in all aspects of their life, using not only kettlebells, but barbells and bodyweight training. Anyways, today on the show, I have the CEO of StrongFirst on with me. His name's Eric Frohardt. He's a former U.S. Navy SEAL, a decorated combat veteran with multiple tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan. And today on the show, we're going to talk kettlebell training, becoming strong, not just physically, but mentally, and why strength is a skill. So it's going to be a great podcast, a lot of great takeaways. So let's do this. Eric Frohardt, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brett. Appreciate it.
So you are the CEO of a company called StrongFirst. So what is StrongFirst, and what's the story behind it for our listeners who aren't familiar with it?
Well, StrongFirst is the school of strength, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. But the story behind StrongFirst is pretty interesting. Pavel Tsatsouline, our founder and chairman, started some people call it the kettlebell revolution or movement back in the early 2000s. He brought the kettlebell over to the U.S. and did some articles in some different magazines about it, and it kind of caught on. He partnered with a publishing company based in Minneapolis and wrote a few books and launched the first kind of global kettlebell instructor certification known as the RKC. And at some point, I believe it was 2011, 2012, due to some differences in the vision, he left that organization, which he kind of co-founded or founded or was organized in. And as he left, he formed StrongFirst, and I believe that was in 2012. And many of the people who he had chosen as senior instructors or master instructors or even team leader instructors within that organization kind of followed and joined StrongFirst with them. So
there's that. Well, so tell us more about Pavel, because he's an interesting guy. He's from Russia. What's his background? It was something with the KGB or the Russian military, or
it's the Spetsnaz.
The Spetsnaz, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, their version of the Special Operations Forces. He's not very open about that part of his history. So, and Pavel's he's a very private guy.
Understandable.
And
I am too.
Right.
But I mean, so I think it's one of the things I find fascinating is this whole, the Russian mentality towards physical fitness, because they during the 70s, during the Cold War, they were doing some crazy stuff, experimentation on basically improving human performance that we sort of take for granted nowadays. Is that sort of the research and this Russian approach pervade StrongFirst a bit, or is it you're building off of that and adding the new research that's come in?
It's a mixture of both, Brett. There's underpinnings in that system, and Pavel, people forget he was a master of sports there, and it has to do with a certain level within the state of their fitness. I'm not sure how to best describe that. He does a very good job of taking the complicated science and making it simple. There's his recent book, Kettlebell, Simple and Sinister. It seems extremely simple, and it is. It's very effective, but he basically distilled down a lot of science from that and made it a little more digestible. On the higher end of the spectrum, we have an event called Plan Strong. And in that course, it's almost a 2-day course. he goes through some very, very detailed programming methodologies or programs for people to use to get really strong on certain lifts. So
gotcha.
Very, 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 very intelligent guy.
Yeah, super knowledgeable. So tell us about your story and how did you get involved with StrongFirst?
Absolutely. Well, I was introduced to Pavel's methods back in 2005. A close friend of mine, a teammate of mine named John Foz, showed me his kettlebell. And John and I were SEALs together, serving at the same SEAL team at the time. And John was a very close friend of Pavel's. In fact, Pavel trained John as a high schooler, and later on, once John kind of had aspirations of becoming a Navy SEAL, he found Pavel through a magazine article, and Pavel was teaching people some kettlebell training methods in Minneapolis. So I met John, and I saw him doing his kettlebell exercises, and I just was very curious because I was kind of sick of the standard lift weights one day, cardio the next day kind of thing. It just was burnt out. So I spent some time using Pavel's principles of strength primarily with kettlebells and some barbell stuff and some body weight exercises, but primarily kettlebells. I just liked the simplicity of it. I did that for a few years. Actually, the first time I did it just for a few months right before a deployment, and was completely shocked at how much better that tool and those methods prepared me for combat tours, or as I like to say, various adventures. And it just, for the first time, I just felt like the gear I was wearing felt light, and I felt like I moved well, and I felt really strong, and I didn't get bigger while doing it. I had done a lot of strength training stuff in the past, but didn't like bulking up with it. So fast forward from there, I met Pavel when he came to our team one time and trained us, and really enjoyed meeting him. A year after that, I got certified, and later after that, I got certified through StrongFirst recertified through StrongFirst when he moved. I really love the training. I love the way it made me feel and perform, and I am would never have taken this gig if I wasn't a big believer in it. In 2014, Pavel hit me up on email, and he asked me to help look for a new CEO. At the time, I was working at the Blue Corps Shooting Center, which is a firearms range, retail, and training facility that I co-founded here in Denver. And during one of my daily walks, which I've seen you write about many, many times, I was just kind of thinking about my future and my plans and stuff, and it just kind of hit me that I should apply for that gig. So after kind of a lengthy interview process, I was fortunate enough to be selected as the new CEO for StrongFirst. And so I stepped down from the day-to-day at Blue Corps, and now I'm the CEO of StrongFirst. And it's been really, really fun, challenging and rewarding. I did fail to mention that John Foz, my best friend, or one of my best friends in the Navy, and the guy that Pavel trained, and he's been mentioned in a few of Pavel's books, but John was he was killed in that helicopter crash in 2011. So that's kind of how Pavel and I met, and how we've stayed in contact, and how I took this gig. It's been great.
And you've also helped us out on the Art of Manliness, consulting on some articles. So we did the how to pull an all-nighter. Yeah. From a special force guy, which you are. It's funny whenever it's like finals time, right? Like December, it's like there's like this uptick of people checking that post out, how to pull an all-nighter. Yeah. And then the tactical way of dressing. Yeah. Which is a lot of fun. So if you guys haven't seen those, go Google and search that on the site. So let's talk about StrongFirst. Like, why the name StrongFirst, and like the philosophy behind that underlies the exercises that you all teach.
Yeah. No, I'll just kind of start with our mission. We want to make the world a stronger place. We want to make people stronger. It's instead of a war against obesity, we have a war against weakness, right?
I like that.
What we are is we're a school of strength, and we help people achieve high levels of strength in a safe, efficient, and effective manner. And this is important, without interfering with their lives, their jobs, or their duties. And that was important to me when I was a SEAL, that the training I didn't hurt me or my ability to perform my duty. And it's important to, firemen, policemen, law enforcement, whatever, like military, law enforcement, first responders. It's important that your training, makes you stronger, yet not interferes with what you're trying to do. We believe that strength is a master quality. In other words, getting stronger helps all other physical endeavors. And we believe that strength has a greater purpose. Strength in the gym is really cool, but strength for real life applications is more important. And that can be as simple as, or as cool as, a Navy SEAL getting stronger for a mission, or more realistic, but in my opinion, just as cool as, having someone who used to be deconditioned or weak, who can now, do chores around the house and pick up, luggage in the airport and just actually feel strong and be strong. So that's who we are. We are StrongFirst, but not strong only. As mentioned earlier, we believe, strength is important. It's a master quality, and that having high levels of strength will improve all other physical attributes, whether it's mobility, flexibility, agility, or all those, coordination, work capacity. There's a number of them. Being strong will help you in all of those. It'll also help you be, from being a dancer to playing football, distance running to powerlifting, yoga to MMA. If people get stronger, they just watch. They can just watch themselves improve. We have a saying, like, we want people to, be what you want. As I mentioned, it could be a football player, a dancer, a runner, a power lifter, fighter, whatever. Be whatever you want, but be strong first. And we don't diminish any of the other physical qualities, right? If you ever attend any of our events, our certs or our courses, you'll notice we spend time working on mobility, flexibility, and discussing conditioning. But we've chosen not to be all things to all people. Our niche is strength training, and being strong is timeless.
So how do you make people stronger? You mentioned the kettlebell, and there seems like there's an emphasis on the kettlebell. What's so great about the little cannonball thing with the handle on it?
There's a lot of different things. We have a principle-based system, and our principles are time-honored, battle-tested, and proven. And these principles help people achieve high levels of strength. And we focus on being safe, efficient, and effective with all of our training. In fact, we don't call it training, we call it practice, because strength is a skill. And that is an example of one of our principles. Strength is a skill.
I love that. I love that idea that strength is a skill. That is really cool.
Oh, it's one of our most important principles. And it's just, we use that and many other principles, and we have different tools. Obviously, we're most known for the kettlebell, but we have barbell and body weight courses and certifications as well. And certainly, as I mentioned, we're most known for the kettlebell, but our principles are the same in all the different certs and events. There are some things that are interesting about the kettlebell, and the obvious emphasis is that the whole kettlebell revolution was started by Pavel. And as I mentioned, he introduced it to Western culture in the early 2000s. And since then, he's been building and refining our curriculum into what it is today. And simply put, the kettlebell is just very efficient and effective. And it's also very safe if the exercises are done correctly. You can reach high levels of strength and high levels of conditioning with a very simple tool that takes very little space, can be used in the home, and takes very little time. So that is some of the reasons behind the popularity of it. And for us, it's kind of just a great all around tool, really, for anybody.
So yeah. One of the things about the kettlebell is not just a strength tool; it could be as a conditioning tool.
Absolutely.
Work capacity. I actually, speaking of how it's can fit in your house, right? You don't really need much space. I have like a kettlebell right by my kitchen, just sitting there. And whenever it's the whole greasing the groove principle, which I got from Pavel.
Absolutely.
Whenever I walk by it, no matter what, I'll stop and do 5 kettlebell swings with it.
No, that's great. That's a great way to, grease the groove it's one of his many, awesome programs. It's worked well with kettlebell movements. Pull-ups is a really good one too.
Yeah, I got that going. So explain what grease the groove is, because it's a pretty cool, it's so simple, but it has such profound implications if you actually put it into practice.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's just as simple. You're just kind of practicing a movement or grooving a pattern, kind of randomly throughout the day. And the idea is, instead of doing, let's say I'm going to practice doing one arm or just pull-ups, right? And instead of doing my 5 sets of 5 pull-ups, one after another with a couple of minutes break in between, if I do them throughout the day, it allows me to practice each set more well-rested. So if I'm going to do heavy pull-ups, it works really well, and I can get strong. I just kind of, there's a lot of things about it. What I've always found is it just tricks you into doing a lot of volume, as well as doing none of the sets are you really tired.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not doing 5 sets of 5 or whatever right after another. You're kind of just doing it as you pass by.
Yeah, exactly. So I have one of those door frame pull-up bars.
Right.
Another place, and anytime I walk under it, I crank out 5 pull-ups.
Perfect.
And what I love about the grease the groove thing is that whole idea that strength is a skill, because a lot of people think that, okay, to get stronger, you just need to build up muscle mass. But there's the nerve process in there. Your nerves have to learn how to contract your muscles in a certain way in order to maximize on that muscle capacity.
Absolutely. And I'm not, Pavel is really good at this stuff, explaining it. And some of our senior instructors also very good at it. All of our, our leadership, from team leader to senior to master, they would know all this stuff a little bit better. What I find is that when you treat it like a practice, you want to approach each practice session so that most of them you leave feeling better.
Yeah.
Because you're maintaining good form throughout. You're not there to get the burn. And the neat thing about that is it's a good way to get strong without bulking up. And you mentioned the mind to muscle connection. It's very, very critical. Just teaching yourself to get full recruitment out of a muscle, or not full, but more recruiting out of your muscle versus just growing the size of that muscle. Right. Yeah. So it's a very, very powerful thing. And it's part of, a bunch of our different programs, from Grease the Groove, Simple and Sinister, Easy Strength, things like that. It's very, very important that you get that, that mind to muscle connection.
Yeah. So if you're listening, this is a great thing. Like, do this. Go out and get one of those door frame pull-up bars. They cost like $15. Put it in your door frame. Anytime you walk through it, crank out 5 pull-ups. Or if you can't even do a pull-up, just do 1 pull-up.
Yep. Hangs.
Add on, or just hang, right? Or you can do the same thing with a kettlebell. So one of the things I've noticed about StrongFirst and the content you put on the website, and as well as in the content in the books, is that you focus on the psychology of strength as well. Not just the physical aspect. So my question is, what psychological barriers do you think get in the way of people getting strong or stronger?
Yeah. I think there's a few different ones. We believe, as many do, that attitude is everything, and we spend a lot of time talking about it, and we try to distinguish ourselves. As StrongFirst instructors, we try to distinguish ourselves from the hordes of trainers littering the landscape of the industry. We like to. Pavel always says, we're not trainers, we're instructors. Trainers have dogs. We have students. And, he also says that we don't have clients. Hairstylists have clients. We have students, right? So it's definitely a mindset thing. Our instructors, they're brought together by, the beliefs I'd mentioned earlier, one of which is strength has a greater purpose and strength is a skill and things like that. And they realize that the barriers preventing some people from achieving their potential in strength training, there's just a number of different ones. And some people get worried that they'll get too big if they start strength training, right? So they're more interested in, being lean and not getting strong. And they don't understand that getting strong is a really awesome way to get lean, and it's muscles that actually work versus muscles that look.
Yeah.
And if it was easy to just get big by strength training, the supplement industry wouldn't be as successful as it was, right? There's so many people that are lifting and taking supplements, and they still can't, in their mind, get big enough. So we kind of combat that you won't really get too big if you strength train. And it's you get incredibly strong without getting much bigger than you already are. And most people actually lose weight when they start, even though they'll be gaining some muscle. And as you start to get better and you start to pursue goals, then you sometimes tell yourself, as you have a new goal, or if you see other goals that people have achieved, there's the voice in your head saying, I can't do that, right? And we try to convince people that, we have a number of people who have achieved, amazing physical feats, either as our, beast tamers or tactical strength challenges or other little goals that we have. And they're not all huge, right? So in many cases, it's mind over matter, especially if you look at it as strength training as a practice, and that consistency trumps intensity, in the long run.
Yeah.
The big problem is some people find our protocols kind of boring, and it's just like Grease the Groove is not that sexy.
No, it's not.
Every time you walk by the pull-up bar, do pull-ups. The problem is we don't chase fads. What we do is timeless. We stick to what works, whether it's the principle or the tool being the kettlebell, the barbell, or the body weight. We understand that many people get the exercise ADD, and they want to do something new. They want to, quote, feel the burn. I've heard people say, I did swings twice last week, and now I'm an expert. What's next? And they don't want to stick to it and master the basics. And quite honestly, I saw the same thing in firearms training. You would have people who can finally hit a target 5 yards away, and they want to start moving and shooting with the lights off.
Oh yeah.
So they don't really care about the basics. And when I was in the military, when I was a young Navy SEAL, there was a place that we got some high-end firearms training. And the instructors there, they said a bunch of different things, and many of them stuck with me, but none more than this statement, and that is, the best do the basics better. And I've used that in so many parts of my life now, and I think it's so true in physical training or firearms training. Our world is full of people who are, quote, bored with the basics and mediocre. If they would just spend time on the basics in firearms training, the basic trigger squeeze at 3 yards and things like that. And in the kettlebell world, our kettlebell swing. If you had people spend time on those basics, they'd be a lot better off. They just get bored. As Pavel says many times, the kettlebell swing takes like 5 minutes to learn and a lifetime to master. So I think if people spent more time on basics and stuck to their goals instead of changing programs every 3 weeks, they'd be a lot better off.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, the whole idea, I guess what they call it, like in martial arts, they call that the white belt mentality. Right. And I love, there's all these like anecdotal stories from like Vince Lombardi. Like on the first day of practice, first thing he was doing, he'd hold up a football and he says, "Gentlemen, this is a football." And he'd explain to him, "This is a football field." It's divided up into 100 yards. And then Wooden, the UCLA basketball coach.
Yeah.
He did something like at the first day of practice, he would like show them how to tie their shoes so they wouldn't come untied. Like,
that's awesome.
Just the basics, right? They were incredibly successful because they focused on those basics.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've seen it. Martial arts is a great analogy. You have whether it's jiu-jitsu or Krav Maga, whatever you're taking. Some schools you go to and you learn like 6 moves in an hour.
Yeah.
And you feel like, wow, that was cool. And then you can't recall any of them when it matters. But the good ones, they spend time drilling one thing and to the point of boredom, but then you can draw on it when you need it.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing I've noticed too, whenever you start focusing on the basics, is that, and you have that mentality of trying to get better at it, is that it starts getting like actually really interesting because you start noticing nuances that you didn't notice as a beginner. But it takes a while to get to that place though.
Absolutely. And that can be as simple as, I've been doing martial arts for a while and I'm starting to notice like just tweaking little things about hitting the heavy bag and, where the power comes from and when to tense up and when to relax and stuff like that. And the kettlebell, especially our ballistic moves, like the kettlebell swing, it's such a neat balance between tense, relax, and the hip drive and things like that. So it's and when to how long it floats versus forcing it down. There's just a lot of different things you can do with it.
So you guys offer several courses with the School of Strength, and we do a lot of fitness content on the site, and one I guess complaint I would call it. Some guys say we talk about too much like advanced stuff, guys who are already fit.
Right.
For the guy who's just like, man, he needs to lose 30, 40 pounds. He hasn't exercised maybe ever in his life.
Right.
What's a good entry point exercise or course for that kind of guy?
Yeah. So for most people, we always recommend they have a couple of options. They can look for a StrongFirst certified instructor in their area to show them some basics with the kettlebell or barbell or body weight. It takes it's important that if you're going to use kettlebells, that you learn how to use them safely. You see them in gyms all the time now, and for the most part, even the trainers at gyms are doing the exercises wrong. But finding an instructor, getting a lesson or a group class is a great way to start. And I would recommend that before just buying kettlebells and clicking YouTube and saying go.
Yeah.
Another great option we created user courses, and we have the user course for the kettlebell, barbell, and body weight. The kettlebell is the most popular user course, and it's a very in-depth user course. It's about 8 hours, but you spend a lot of time learning the basic moves, and it's a good way to learn those moves in a course setting, a non-intimidating environment. And it's a single day. Instead of our certifications are 3 days long, and they obviously cost a lot more money, and not everybody wants to be a kettlebell instructor. So we created this user course, and it's a really good option.
Is this something they had to come out to Denver for?
No, we have user courses all over.
Okay, cool.
In most states now we have user courses, but we have a user course in Denver if you ever want to come out.
I need to get out to Denver. Actually, my managing editor, Jeremy, lives in Denver.
So, oh, cool.
Maybe I'll get him over there.
Yeah, send him my info. I'd love to send him to a user course and let him know or have him let me know what he thinks.
Yeah, fantastic. So what about the guy who's intermediate, right? Or here's a question: like, I know we have a lot of guys who are LEOs or in the military. Do you guys have specific like training programs for these type of guys?
Yeah, we do a lot of training for law enforcement and military. We don't really have much of that on the website yet. We're going to have our own kind of division that just focuses on that at some point. We've already been doing it without really having that yet. But we do. There's some very, very basic stuff for them. The kettlebell and body weight in particular are popular because they're just very easy to have when you travel. And I'm a really firm believer in it. When I started using the kettlebell, my kit, my body armor, whatever you want to call it, it started to feel a lot lighter. I felt like I'd move around a lot better, and it just really, really worked.
Cool. So if you had to choose one single lift, movement, exercise,
right,
for someone to do, I know it's probably like picking children, but what would it be?
For me, that's an easy question. I would say, hands down, the kettlebell swing. As I mentioned before, you can learn it very quickly, but you can spend a lifetime trying to master it. It's just a great movement or a great exercise for strength and conditioning. We've used it. We've used it to help elite endurance athletes and elite powerlifters. And myself, I used it, to make myself a better soldier, a better operator. It carries over to a lot of different athletic endeavors. In fact, I once took my deadlift from 360 to 450, and this was at a body weight of 180. So from 2 to 2.5 times my body weight, I took my deadlift up that much just by doing 3 months of swings 3 days a week at varying intensities. And we call that the what the heck effect, because I didn't do deadlifts and I didn't do whatever that I was testing, but I saw that stuff go up or improve. Nowadays, I do almost no cardio. I jump rope a couple times a week. I do a 1 mile walk each day, of course, and sometimes I hike or ski on weekends, and typically I do kettlebell swings at least 2 to 5 days a week, depending on what program I'm on. And so no real cardio per se, like most people consider cardio, the treadmill or the elliptical. None of that boredom, or as Pavel says, none of that dishonor. And all I do is the hiking and the jump rope and the kettlebell, and I just got a physical, and my heart rate was 47 beats a minute. So it really does work as a form of cardio. And the kettlebell swing is, as we say, it's the center of the kettlebell universe. If you have a good swing, you're going to be good at most of the other moves. That's
awesome, man. You've got me. I'm going to go do kettlebell swings now. I'm drinking the cool. I'm going to go do it right now.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing. I have one here in the office. It just fits everywhere.
They do. So what weight do you suggest for guys?
That's a good question. Most guys will get the most use out of the 24 kilo.
Okay.
I think that's about 53 pounds. And
is that a pood?
Yeah, I think so. I'll have to look at the
1 pood.
1 pood.
2 poods.
A lot of people will get, will start at the 16 kilo.
That's not enough.
That's not enough for most, but there's some good moves you can do with that. Right now I'm doing the simple and sinister protocol, and I'll kind of go back and forth between the 24 and the 32 kilo. So 32 kilos is like 72 pounds or something.
Awesome. Cool. Simple and Sinister. That's the new book, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So where can people find out more about StrongFirst and the programming you all offer?
Yeah, just check us out on StrongFirst.com. It's all kind of laid out there with our courses and our certs and links to the different books, and it's just that's where we send people, and if they want to find a StrongFirst instructor in their area, they can find those instructors through our page.
Awesome. Well, Eric Frohardt, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Our guest today was Eric Frohardt. He's the CEO of StrongFirst. You can find out more information about StrongFirst and their training programs at strongfirst.com. Well, that wraps up another edition of the Art of Manliness podcast. For more manly tips and advice, make sure to check out the Art of Manliness website at artofmanliness.com. And if you enjoy the show, you've gotten something out of it, please give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. That'll help get the word out. And the best compliment you could give us is to recommend the podcast to a friend. We'd really appreciate it. Anyways, until next time, this is Brett McKay telling you to stay manly.